Welcome to the Business Legends Podcast, where we interview business leaders and entrepreneurs so that you can learn from their successes, become inspired, and meet the people that make change happen. I'm the host, Joe Breazeale, and along with my co-host, Mr. Ripped Jeans himself, Christian Webb. Say hello to people.
I was going to tell him myself.
Yeah. I mean, okay. You should stand up and show the camera, dude.
No,
I mean,
definitely not.
Man, your booty's getting too big, man. You've been squatting. That's all it is.
Need to keep running.
Today we are joined by our good friend Renee Breazeale with Victory in Time and author of an amazing book. Renee, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and putting up with our with all of our ripped jeans comments and all that stuff. So I couldn't remember all of the words of the name of your book, but please go ahead and tell our listeners the name of your book.
It is Soaring Through Adversity: Life Lessons to Lead, Triumph, and Rise Above.
Amazing. I cannot wait to read it. And you said you got me a copy, so I can't wait. I can't wait to see it. So tell us a little bit about Victory in Time and also your book.
Okay, well, let's start with the book because it kind of is where the Victory in Time spun off of. I owned a fastener company for 32 years. And along the journey, there were quite a few adversities. You know, when you talk about 32 years, you're talking about a lot of ebbs and flows in the economy, you know, in technology. I mean, a lot. You know, we're talking going from a fax machine to where we are in the world today.
Yeah.
And, well, let's start over. There was no fax machine. I bought my first fax machine for $3,000.
Wow.
Yes.
Wow.
And financed it.
Wow.
Yes. So, talk old school here.
Yeah.
But so at that point, when I started writing the book, it was going to be about business. But as I went through it, I have gone through some extraordinary adversities personally as well. And I started realizing how much my personal life affected my business life and vice versa. Whether it was an adversity, a victory, you know, when you own a small business and you start it from scratch. In fact, I've got 6 children now with my husband, but I have 2 daughters. And it's sad to say, but it's also kind of funny, they called Victory Bolt my firstborn child. So, I did baby it and loved every minute of it. But so as I started writing the book, I kind of put it all in there, and it goes from, you know, getting my first contract that put me on the map to a tsunami in Japan that almost could have wiped the whole thing out because prices went through the roof, material shortages. You know, how I maneuvered through that. I wanted people to understand in business that, you know, just because you own a business, sometimes people think, hey, you're your own boss. Well, that's anything further from the truth. You know, you've got a lot of responsibilities and a lot of people to answer to.
You got a bunch of bosses.
Yeah, your bosses are your clients. He's my boss, which that's funny in itself, but you know, somebody's got to manage me.
If I was his boss, I'd quit.
Would it be a tough job?
Oh, it would.
The toughest, the absolute toughest.
I've attempted.
It doesn't work very well. Anyway, we're sorry.
That's okay. So then, you know, it went into some physical disabilities where I broke my back.
Oh, wow.
I got that large contract, the customer asked me, what happens if you die?
Oh, my God.
And I'm like, okay, we've been going through the warehouse and looking at inventory, and we've been going through the quality department, and you want to know what happens if I die? And I was kind of taken aback from it, but at the same time, I'm like, that's an interesting question. Yeah. And I don't dismiss questions, you know. I think about it and mull it over.
Super rude, but I mean, you know.
Yeah. But when you think about me being the entrepreneur that I have always been meant to be, it was my baby, and I did a lot of the controlling. Because the business was, you know, nobody was going to work as hard as I did in my mind. Whether that was true or not, that was what was in my mind.
That's that baby entrepreneur brain.
That's right. So I put wheels into motion and started developing a plan and putting in procedures together so that, you know, you've heard people say, what happens if you get hit by a bus? You know, that kind of thing. And so I started putting things into place to make sure if something did happen that the company would proceed. And right after I got through doing that, I fell 15 feet, landed on concrete, and broke my back.
Oh, man.
So it took me a while to get through it. And so...
And what year was this?
Oh, gosh. probably 2009.
Okay.
And so a long time ago.
Yeah.
And but I waited about 8 weeks, and I called that customer, and I said, you asked me what would happen if I died. And he said, yes. I remember that, and I remember the look on your face. I said, well, I took it to heart. I started putting some procedures in place, also some legal documents in place. I said, but I guess the question would be, what would happen if I broke my back? And he said, what? I said, yeah, I broke my back about 8 weeks ago, 8 weeks ago. I said, and you didn't even know it.
Wow.
So it was a moment. It was a moment.
So you did it well.
Yeah.
Yeah. My team did it well.
Yeah.
That was when I talk about procedures into place. It was making sure that everybody was a team and everybody was working as a team.
It's good.
And so, so a lot of that is in the book. From domestic violence to, it was, at first I started to leave that out. But I'm like, if that can help somebody, because people when I would tell my story, which was very healing to me, I realized that people would say to me, oh, you're so strong, how did that happen to you? So it was important to me for people to understand it didn't matter what the demographic was or, what you do for a living or where you live. It doesn't matter. It can happen to anybody. Fortunately, I was never around that, so I knew it was wrong, and I didn't stay very long. But it is a true cycle, so I put it in there because I wanted to have a voice out there to help people understand that it can happen to anybody, and you can also come through it and have victory on the other side. So, fast forward, it goes into everything you can think of to, 2008 and the crash where, it was like turning off a water faucet. And I had a brain tumor at the same time, and
Wow.
had to learn to walk again, and was totally dependent.
Now, was that just something that happened, or did anything cause it, or do they know? Or
They don't know.
Okay.
It was kind of funny though. They constantly. I was a part of a test to see maybe if they could figure out why. So we had frequent phone calls every 90 days, and like a group study. And they asked me constantly, and again, you guys may not even remember this, but those big cordless phones that were huge, and they had the big long antenna, and and they had those huge batteries. They asked me more questions about that than anything, because think about it. Now you hear about batteries on a cell phone. Well, look how tiny they are.
Right.
These things were huge. So I just found that interesting. When did you get one? How long did you use it? That kind of thing.
Yeah, it's usually self-harm.
Yeah, but in the the short answer is
So
no.
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But in the short no, they don't know. But they said it was probably growing for 10 years.
Wow.
I had a lot of symptoms along the way that the doctors didn't connect the dots. And
Yeah. How did you know? I mean.
Well, I was having headaches. I was getting more and more fatigued. I was having memory issues, which is kind of a long-term effect. And it had been going on for a while. When I broke my back, I had tingling in my right arm and right leg. So that didn't start for years later, but that's where they thought that came from. So like I say, nobody connected the dots. But then my husband, we had dated for a year, been married for a year, and he saw major changes. That was when the symptoms really rose high, and I was literally going home at 2 o'clock in the afternoon and taking some for pain, sleeping till dinner time, getting up,
wow.
eating, and going back to bed. So, he
You weren't
pushed
feeling
the
good,
fact
yeah.
I was not, and I was not myself. So he pushed the fact for me to get an MRI, and I was laying in the MRI machine going, dear God, please don't make me wait long to find out these results. Because you know how you Google.
Oh yeah.
Google's the worst.
And Ray was thinking I had MS, and I was thinking I had Alzheimer's. So I'm laying in there,
geez.
and they pull me out of the machine, and they say, they've gone to get your husband, and you need to get dressed. They want to see you. And I'm like, this cannot be good. And there was a tumor the size of my husband's fist sitting on top of my head.
Oh my God.
So anyway, all that was going on, and we went from 49 employees down to 8, including Ray and I. At the same time, I'm learned to walk again, and went from being the most independent person to the most dependent person you can imagine.
Yeah.
So with all of this that took place over the years, and by the way, the company survived. It was better than ever, which led to our sale in 2019. But when I was putting the book together, and I put all this in there because it was my hopes that people could see, like I said, that having your business is not all roses, and it's hard, and you have to work hard, and things are going to happen, and it's your attitude that makes the difference in how you see it. I have been telling people to see an adversity as an adventure, and you can get through it. It's how you look at things, and fortunately, I've had that kind of attitude along the way. Not always. I mentioned depression in the book. There were times when I'd go to bed for several days and try to pull it together, and thank God would.
Let's talk about that for a minute. I mean, now perhaps even more than ever in the post-COVID times and stuff. I mean, mental health is a very real thing, and I think that the COVID times kind of illuminated a lot of those things. So, how did you pull yourself out of it, so to speak? So, you go to bed for a couple of days, you're enduring depression and things like that. Like, what did you have any particular strategy to get through it, or
well,
what did that do?
For me, it was a lot about my faith, but it was also a time that I would sleep and regenerate.
Mm-hmm.
I ran myself ragged most of the time, and I would try and I would try and I would try, and then just my body would just shut down,
mm-hmm.
and would go to bed for a while and use my faith. But I would encourage anybody to take a look at what's going wrong, but looking at it like, yes, it may be going wrong, but what can we do that would make it right?
Mm-hmm.
What can I learn from what put me in this bed to begin with?
No reason to look at what's going wrong and not thinking about how to fix it.
Exactly. Or you're going to stay stuck.
Mm-hmm.
I call it what if land.
Mm-hmm.
What if this doesn't go away? What if I lose this customer? What if I'm not able to walk again?
Mm-hmm.
But it's what if I can?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like to look at that kind of stuff. When I find something wrong, I like to think like, what did we do wrong? How do we fix it based on our actions? And usually that plugs a pretty solid hole. 'Cause it's like the first time could be an accident,
Mm-hmm.
Second time's your fault.
Yeah.
Because you didn't fix it. You saw the problem and you didn't plug it.
Exactly.
And that's
exactly.
I think it's healthy because you can't control customers. You can't control health. You can't control life.
No.
But you can control what's right in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. At that moment.
Yeah.
And the attitude that you use to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
And I think another big point is to look inward, which was also what I would do during those times, instead of pointing a finger at somebody else.
Yeah.
Because you can't control that. You just said you can't. That's another thing you can't control. It's
Yeah, it's so important to have self-reflection in that way,
Absolutely.
especially as an entrepreneur.
I'd say management as well.
Yeah, I mean any form of leadership really. Being able to be introspective and try to correct problems and things like that.
I would say good leaders know they're imperfect. I'd say a lot of like wannabe leaders think that they're perfect and they're like the management system that makes everything work well, And I think that's where the flaw is, because like you got to be willing to go, okay, what is my process? What's wrong with my process? Why does that person not report this data to me correctly? Why does this not do this? What did I teach him wrong? Or what did I teach her wrong?
Exactly.
Yeah.
She just doesn't know how to do this. She doesn't get it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Her process is broken somehow, but I created it. Mm-hmm. So what is broken and how do I fix it?
Mm-hmm.
For sure. So tell us then about Victory in Time. So you sold Victory Bolt in 2019, and so where does Victory in Time fit in, and how did that come about?
Well, when I was standing on the back porch and looking at the water after we sold Victory, and I struggled with that because I lost my identity.
Yeah.
People would introduce me, this is Renee Breazeale, she's the CEO of Victory Bolt and Specialty. Well, all of a sudden, I was not.
Yeah.
So who was I? So when I'm standing out there looking at the water going, what is it that I need to do? And it immediately came to my mind to use what I've learned to help other people. And COVID hit.
Mm-hmm.
So immediately, and we started seeing the news that, everything was shutting down. And I knew at that moment that was the greater purpose for the timing for the sale of Victory Bolt.
Because that would have hurt for a couple of years.
Yeah, for sure.
It would have. And we were at the top of our game. So it was kind of, for me, it was like, hey, let's go to the next level. And I had a CFO that was absolutely amazing, but he was the financial guru. And he would say, what happens, Renee, if there's another 9/11? And I'm like, Paul, I cannot live like that. But that was his mindset, because he had seen, adversities, not just within my company, but he was a part-time CFO that spent a lot of time with us. And so he helped us grow to the point and set us up for a quick sale. And so I called him and I was like, well, I guess we got our so-called 9/11 with COVID.
Yeah.
And of course he said, I told you so.
Oh, geez.
But it immediately came to mind of I was speaking at a woman's event, and there was a publisher there, and she came up and whispered in my ear, you should write a book. So that started my process then of that's how I'll spend this time. But then it came down to, it came from the speaking opportunity. So why not start a business, and it's called Victory in Time, where the book is sold and the net proceeds goes to a foundation. And
it's your foundation, is that right? Or
it is. My husband and I started it. We just went live with the website in January, so it's new. We're accepting grants. So that's
awesome.
Exciting. That's exciting. But I also wanted to, launch some speaking opportunities, and it's really evolving a lot with emerging leaders and young professionals. So I'm enjoying that, and then launching some mastermind groups. And that is also seems to be gearing, because I'm doing some mentoring now, and some of it's I spoke at Wingate University, so there's some students that I'm mentoring there. So it's just been fun. I mean, I'm enjoying it. It's I'm learning as I go.
Yeah.
It's like it's a new start.
Yeah.
It's not nuts and bolts any longer.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you feel like, since you decided to do this, you're talking about after your exodus of Victory Bolt, I don't want to say you had an identity crisis, but I mean,
I did.
Okay, all right. Well, then you had an identity crisis.
Yeah. You can call it what it is.
Okay, yeah. So, do you feel like now that you've started this, written your book, and started the foundation, do you feel like your identity is coming back, or it's evolving, growing? Like, how does that fit in?
I think it's come full circle. I think it's, when you look back over your life, you can take what you've learned and move it forward and help somebody else. And I'm enjoying that, because with the foundation, it's called the Victory Advantage. And, I'm running it like a business, but it's just nonprofit.
Yeah.
So
you could have always bought your business back for pennies on the dollar after COVID.
Yeah, well,
You know
probably.
what? It was a $100 million company.
Wow.
That's such a big company.
AFC was the name of the company, and they were buying branches or companies everywhere and creating branches for them. And they were so large, and they had a medical division. And they spread the wealth, and not one of my employees lost their job.
Oh, that's
And you
that
see,
is
I
awesome.
still said my employees.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The employees I hired.
Right.
And we had
Your people.
tenure. Yeah, we had tenure there that people up to 28 years of the 32.
Wow.
So you
That's
told
awesome.
some good people at least. 'Cause they didn't have to. They could have shut the business.
Oh, and that was part of the sale, is their culture was very similar to ours, and that was very important to me. I bonded with the CEO, and I trusted him, and they honored everything they said they were going to do during the sale. So that was encouraging from the get-go.
awesome.
Yeah, from the get-go.
You hardly ever hear that, especially because who could have predicted what happened through 2020, 2022? I mean, not that you want this to happen or anything, but if they would have had to let folks go through that time, given what was going on in the environment, you couldn't really blame them,
Yeah.
But how
That's
amazing
business.
Because they were
That's
profitable
business.
at those locations.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
The ones that didn't have the medical stuff.
Exactly. So, but the employees were constantly calling me.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going, I wish you hadn't sold. Would you come back? That kind of thing. Yeah. So when COVID hit, and then a year later they all kept their jobs, I said, don't call me and say that anymore.
Yeah.
It would have been a different picture with my pocketbook and my checkbook.
Right.
Yeah.
with COVID.
Yeah, you'd have had to cut half of it probably.
I would have. It'd have been like '08 again.
Yeah.
And so yeah. Well,
Wow.
hopefully not, but
But
there was
they
a
were
chance
good.
of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a chance. There's always a chance of that.
It's funny how things sometimes come full circle like that. Like sometimes, I don't know, it's kind of eerie. Christian and I joke sometimes about when things happen that you couldn't have written any better. It's like we live in a simulation type of thing, But it's amazing that it seems like you got out at the exact right second, And looking back, of course, you're like, oh, I wish I was still in it because it was your life. But I mean, it all worked out.
Oh, it did. It did. And being able to give back like we do now is just,
Yeah.
it's a good feeling.
For sure.
And so I think I have refound my identity.
Yeah.
And it's Renee Breazeale.
There you go. That's where it starts and ends. You don't have to add any suffixes to
Exactly.
the equation.
The problem is, I feel like we need to. I think the reason everybody has this identity crisis when they sell their businesses or they lose their business or whatnot, I think it's because we don't have a name for after. I think we should be like, I don't know, like business sensei or like.
I'm never referring to you as a sensei or me for that
master
matter.
business seller
Or master anything.
Yeah, whatever.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Like
We're going to
something-
create better adjectives, but
Yeah, we need to create like a title when you sell something.
Yeah,
because
like
like you're the pinnacle of entrepreneurship. Like people want to grow a business and then sell it and retire. That's what they think they want, and then they do that. There should be a title for that.
Yeah.
Like
And it's okay to retire.
yeah.
And I'm saying that because everybody keeps saying that to me, and I don't seem to want to do it.
Yeah.
in the
Mentor.
mirror.
Maybe that's
I'm not
it.
ready.
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
Yeah.
I'm not ready.
Yeah. So before the show, we were talking about how you're passionate about enabling folks with disabilities. So let's talk a little bit about that. So I know it seems like your planning for it is a little bit of it in its infancy, but what is it particularly about that endeavor that you want to participate in? Like why that of all things?
Well, my husband had a brother named Davey, and he had Downs. So Ray was raised in that arena and in that area of life, and then with me having the brain tumor and being so dependent, and then after that, 5 years ago, our daughter was 29 years old and had a massive stroke.
Oh, geez. Wow.
So during the process of my healing, I am walking again. My left leg came back, my right leg didn't. But my upper body did. But with Madison, our daughter, her left leg looks like my right leg, but she never got the use of her left arm back. So she's raised a son that's getting ready to go to, he hopes, the University of Miami. So
Let them go down there. That's party school.
no,
The U.
yes, definitely. So, and then she's got a son that's 10, my grandson. But anyway, having all that experience with people with disabilities and seeing how they're treated, we wanted to start a foundation that allows people to live independently. I've been on the board, advisory board for Johnny and Friends for a couple years, which is a disability ministry that started with a lady that jumped into a lake and became quadriplegic.
Oh, geez.
She's now 70 years old, which is absolutely amazing. And she started an organization called Johnny and Friends, JONI. It's a tremendous organization. But it was with Wheels Around the World, supplying wheelchairs all over the world. And it's grown from there, and the whole premise behind it now is allowing people to feel like they're part of a community, and they have retreats. And one of the beautiful things I love about this organization is they care as much about the caregivers as they do the actual person with a disability.
Yeah.
And I watched what my husband went through taking care of me, and when you first get sick, everybody's there, but then as time goes on, they've got lives. And so he was the one, and it wore him down. So I really love this organization. And so we started understanding that people that are 70 years old are going, John could live on his own, but he can't afford it. Especially now, rent is through the roof.
Oh,
what are we going to do
Everything's
when
inflated,
we
yeah.
die?
Right.
What are we going to do when we die? We
Yeah.
still have a mortgage. Whatever the case may be. So we started.
That's why you
this,
can't retire.
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. So we started this, and it's called Living Without Limitations, and that's our tagline, and that's what we really mean. So throughout this, we're accepting grants now, and the grants will supply items that keeps them independent, like transportation. We say we pick up where ADA leaves off, which is very minimal, to help assist people with construction, whatever they need to be able to stay in their home versus going to, a long-term facility. One of my husband's dreams has been to help other young entrepreneurs start their own business. So we're going to do that with people with disabilities.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So,
That's cool.
So things like that. And last month's rent, that kind of thing to help them get into an apartment.
Yeah. Are you I mean, there's all sorts of disabilities. Are you choosing any specifically, or just anything and everything with that?
I would say that the best description is highly functioning.
Yeah.
Because our biggest goal is to have a community, build a community, find the land, build a community, enlist help like yourselves with your new business of residential painting.
Yeah.
Did y'all catch that?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Plug.
Yeah, plug it in.
Yes.
Yep.
So that's a long-term goal, but that's what we want to do, and that's where the highly functioning comes in, because it's somebody that's going to be able to live alone. And and from that, it led me to want to start a podcast. And that is still also in its infancy, but I'm excited about it because I will be interviewing people with disabilities.
Yeah.
And my goal there is to allow them to bring the community in with their stories of resilience, to also allow other people with disabilities to see, hey, he can do it, I can do it. And change some of their perspective of what they may be going through. And then to help the person that I'm interviewing understand they've got a voice. They are a leader in their own right.
Yeah, we've talked about it a little bit before the show as well, but I think it's really a shame that, well, first off, a lot of people don't have any experience dealing with people with disabilities.
Exactly.
So that presents its own challenge in itself. But I think it's really a shame that a lot of people don't know how to navigate it either, and it's just like anything else. I mean, it's just something that you have to be aware of, right? But you just have to work through it, if that makes sense.
Does.
Any of those other things come into play. You were gonna say something, Christian?
No, I was just thinking, like, you mentioned our painting company helping those people out. I was like thinking to myself, as we grow, I'd love to collaborate on stuff like that. There's actually a company that does it very well already, not painting, it's roofing. I can't remember the name of them right now. They're a California company. They do like a couple thousand homes a year. And it's all for people who just can't afford roofs, right? And they partner with developers all over the country and fly around and do the roofs, and they literally speak on it. It's tied to a great foundation like yours.
Yeah.
Just a
That's
different one.
amazing.
I think it's actually tied to the
I think it's tied to ADA.
It might be
American
actually.
Disabilities Act, something.
Yeah,
but
it might be.
I remember reading about it, but we'll find it. We'll put it in the.
Yeah, my thought is like you could find like 4 or 5 contractors that could do the necessities.
That'd
Yeah.
be great.
And
That'd be great.
I bet a lot of people would love to do that.
That would be amazing. And we're really partnering with the Union County community because there's a lot of collaborating opportunities there. And we can't accomplish this without having the resource partners, which I think is what you're kind of talking about, and not just financial. That's not what we're all about. Yes, we will take your donations, but, being able to give back and become a sense of community. And from what you were saying about people not being around people with disabilities, when I was in a wheelchair, I felt invisible. So, and it wasn't that people were mean, they just didn't understand, like you said. So it's part of this is to teach people how to treat people with disabilities. So, yeah.
Yeah. So back to like 2 minutes ago, 5 minutes ago maybe. I think I figured out a way to fix the title issue after you've sold a business and the issue of too many consultants.
I cannot wait to hear whatever you're about to say.
I think we should call it mentor/consultant. Pick and choose whatever you like, whatever crown you want to wear. But you can only be a consultant or a mentor if you have owned a business, grew a business, and sold the business. So now instead of having a billion consultants all over America trying to sell you stuff constantly that don't know anything about beans in China, you have only people who have grown, built, sold a business.
Yeah.
And then that could be y'all's title.
Yeah, there you
That could be
go.
the crown.
Some
That could
kind
be
of-
That would be great.
Yeah.
I like that.
You have
I
like
like
probably
that.
like what do you think? 1 out of 20 actually has credentials.
Consultants? Oh,
1 out of 100.
yeah.
Coaches.
Coaches.
Is a life coach.
I was a
Yeah.
VP at Bank of America, so I now
Yeah.
consult businesses on growth.
You mean you worked at Bank of America? Is that what? so sorry, Bank of America, don't cancel me. So I want to shift just a little bit, but something that I've noticed is that I like recurring themes in company culture and things like that, and we've talked about it a little bit on the show, but it seems like you've kind of honed in on this word victory, right? Because you use it quite a bit with Victory Bolt, Victory in Time, so on and so forth. Is there any reason that comes from it? Do you just like the word, or is there some kind of meaning behind
That's
that?
the win.
Yeah.
Yes,
I like that.
and
I like
when
that.
there's this company actually started in Knoxville, Tennessee, and I had 2 partners. I was one of 3, and I only owned 36%. But that was one of the things that I got to do was name it Victory Bolt.
Okay.
And it was to succeed, to win, because, we were the underdogs. We had a lot of experience, a lot of connections, but, not a lot of financial benefits. And, it was bootstrapped. So that's where it initially came from. And then the partner that owned 51%, we grew quite fast. He developed some bad habits that nobody could control, that I saw the writing on the wall. And I'm originally from Marshville, Vegas.
Yeah.
And it was time to come back home. I'd been there 8 years. And so I went and seen an attorney and got a branch. Initially, the goal was to, once my branch got to be as successful as the one in Knoxville, then we would split them. But his habits got even worse, and I could see that it was not going to work out. So I was able to get the branch, turn it into my own location, own it 100%. And it was kind of by accident, but we ended up with the Victory name again because my vendors said, if you keep a similar name, you can keep your lines. We'll continue to be your vendors.
Yeah.
So it became Victory Bolt and Specialty, because when I got to Charlotte, I had no idea that there was 28 other fastener companies in this area.
Oh, wow.
There was 3 in Knoxville. At that time, Knoxville and Charlotte were nowhere near similar sizes like they are now.
Yeah, I guess back then you couldn't just check the industrial analytics and
Yeah.
I
Probably didn't have the internet to check it
Yeah,
out.
I couldn't go on the internet,
Yeah.
So,
No Google.
So I had to specialize, and I figured out really quickly that. And one of the specialties we had acquired was stainless steel fasteners, because the marine industry was taking off, and we had a very large corporation that I was kind of following. They were putting a location in Fort Mill, South Carolina, so I automatically had enough to pay my overhead.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so I just
You had a plan before you landed.
exactly. So I took that niche and ran with it. It became Victory Bolt and Specialty. So it worked twice. Why not keep going?
Yeah, I like it. I always think that's so funny when you have multiple business endeavors or whatever, and you stick with a word, but it's like you just catch all these different explanations for it, right? I
Yeah.
mean, sometimes it's just something like that, or just kind of it's almost like you fell backwards into it, but not really, because you were very intentional about where you're going. But also just
A lot of times I just fell into it.
you and me both.
Let's be real. Let's be real.
Yeah.
But you stay open to the opportunities.
Yeah.
You
a
know,
lot of people,
I mean,
a lot of people don't understand that. Like, you can have a plan, but you have a plan while walking. It's like, I'm going to Fort Mill. I'm going here, this area, and now I need to figure out how to pay overhead. Okay, so stainless steel specialty, this contract, let's negotiate that, see if I can pick their contract as soon as they finish building. Oh, they said, yes, awesome. I don't have to kill myself trying to hit overhead. Okay, we're good. Let's land.
Yeah.
let's breathe. Let's breathe. Just only for a second, though, because isn't that what entrepreneurs do?
It is.
I would have, I had one employee in particular that was so close. I had trained him. He came to work for me when he was 19 years old
Oh, wow.
and knocked on my door. And it was absolutely amazing. So, but he looked at me one time, and we just got a contract. And I was like, yay. And then I started talking about the next one. He's like, celebrate the moment, Renee. Let us breathe, And I was like, okay, let's celebrate the moment. So, yeah.
Yeah, that's that Tom Brady mentality. If you ask Tom Brady what his favorite ring is, he'll always say the next one. Like, to this day, he's been retired for a year now. I'll say the next one. Like, and that's just the mindset. I mean, that's that victory mindset altogether.
I would like to see the analytics on, or I guess like what's that chart called when you have like the little dots on it?
like a scatter plot
I guess a scatter plot.
of what? What it would kind of.
I'd like to see the scatter plot on the amount of years that an entrepreneur starts resting on their like laurels for a minute, because like like you rush, you hit a success level and you get comfortable, and I feel like a lot of people take like 6 months to a year there and then start to realize that it's really easy to lose some.
They either go up or down,
and then they're like, or back up.
Yeah,
Exactly.
They dip.
I think that is really true. I think that if you stand still, though, you go backwards.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
You don't realize you're going backwards till you're like, oh, this stuff doesn't keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh,
You got to keep the gas pedal down, so to speak.
It happens. Happens to the best of us.
Yeah,
Yes.
for sure. Well, Renee, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. We're running out of time slowly but surely here, but we like to cast off with our show and ask something fun. And this is where I stall because I can't ever come up with a fun question. And I depend on my esteemed colleague Christian over here to come up with a fun question.
Oh, gosh.
We can't.
I don't have any fun
I am
questions.
blanking. I've used all my brain juices.
If you didn't pick,
There we go.
If you didn't pick the eagle, what other bird would you choose?
There you go. And why? Have to. Yeah.
Oh, my
choose one.
gosh. It's always been the eagle.
Or an animal.
I've
Or an
never-
animal.
no.
Animal's
Eagle
okay.
Eagle doesn't exist. Poof,
Animal's
it's gone.
okay.
An animal? A lion.
A lion.
Lion.
I dig it.
Yeah.
And
Now
why?
You gotta tell us why and make a lion noise.
No.
Please don't make a lion noise, but you do have to tell us why. Yeah.
A lion
Yeah.
noise with a southern accent.
Yeah, there you
I
go.
don't think so.
Rawr.
I don't think so. Oh, my God.
It sounds like the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
That's it. Okay, but why a lion? Why a lion?
Well, I guess a lion, okay. I would say probably one of a description that I would use to describe me as a business owner is competitive.
Okay.
And
Love it.
they're top.
Yeah,
They
top of the food chain.
devour. They devour.
Yeah.
And,
I love it.
And I was usually the underdog, competing against very large corporations, and I had to have that mindset.
Yeah. Love it.
That's an interesting question. Never thought
That
about
was an
Okay.
interesting question. I'm glad I stalled
Yeah.
just long enough for him to come up with it. That was very
All
good.
right. Well, thank you so much. You've been
All right.
amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
y'all. Thank y'all for having me.